Welcome back to Peaceful Soul, the place where we nurture a healthy, happy mind. Picture this. It's a quiet morning. You've just poured yourself a hot cup of coffee. You're looking out the window. And suddenly you wonder, is my brain as healthy today as it was yesterday? Sounds like a strange question, right? But here's the truth. Your brain, the very organ that shapes how you think, how you love, and how you live, is usually the one we pay the least attention to when talking about health. We talk about our heart, our weight, even our skin, but very few of us stop and ask, is my brain healthy? Or is it crying out for help? And here's the good news. You're not stuck with the brain you have right now. You can improve it, you can nourish it, you can even rebuild it. I know that might sound like some catchy marketing slogan, but it's not, it's real science. Over the past 3 decades, neuroscience has proven something called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, form new connections, and recover, even after injury. That means there is real hope for millions of people who once believed memory loss, depression, or poor focus were life sentences. Let's look at the numbers. In 2023, more than 6.7 million Americans over the age of 65 were living with Alzheimer's disease. Worldwide, the number was over 55 million, and by 2050, experts predict that number could soar to 139 million. Which means if you live long enough, say to 85, there's a 50-50 chance you could face dementia. Those statistics are chilling, but they're also a wake-up call. None of us are completely safe from this risk. But here's the brighter side, you can change the outcome. That's right, your brain isn't some lifeless stone or rigid machine destined to break down. It's more like a garden. If you water it, nourish it, and pull out the weeds, it thrives. But if you neglect it, or worse, feed it poison, decline is only a matter of time. And let's be clear, poison isn't just drugs or alcohol. It's also lack of sleep, constant stress, a diet loaded with sugar and bad fats, and even those head bumps you shrugged off years ago. I'll never forget a patient named Michael, a former football player. He used to think those hits on the field were just part of the game. But by the time he hit 40, he was struggling with focus, memory lapses, and sudden mood swings. When he came to us, brain scans showed serious damage from repeated concussions. But here's the miracle. After just a few months of brain rehab with nutrition, exercise, and therapy, more than 80% of his brain function showed signs of improvement. With a relieved smile he told me, I thought my life was over, but my brain still had a chance. Michael's story isn't unique, it could be yours, and that's why I want you to stick with me through this video. Because in the next moments, we're not just going to talk about Alzheimer's, depression, or ADHD as distant medical terms. We're going to talk about things you deal with every single day, the way you sleep, the way you eat, how you handle stress, and even how you treat yourself. Because every one of those habits is shaping the story of your brain. So before we dive deeper into the science, I want you to pause for a second. Think of someone you love, maybe a parent, a grandparent, or even a close friend, someone who's struggling with memory loss or fighting through depression. Now ask yourself, if there was a way to help them, to protect them, to change their future, would I be willing to learn and take action? If your answer is yes, then congratulations, you've just taken the first step on a journey that could change your life. And that journey begins with understanding the 11 major risk factors silently stealing your brain health. In the next part, I'll walk you through them, not just as a boring list, but through real stories and examples, so you can see exactly how your brain is being challenged every single day. Now let's dive into the 11 risk factors that silently damage your brain and how they actually work. When people think about brain health, the first thing that comes to mind is usually genetics. My dad had Alzheimer's, so I'll probably end up with it too. But the truth is more complicated. Genes are like a loaded gun. It's your lifestyle, your habits, and your environment that actually pull the trigger. And science has shown us that there are at least 11 major risk factors that quietly harm your brain every single day. The good news? If you understand them and manage them, you hold the keys to slowing down brain aging and even reversing some of the damage. The first factor is low blood flow. Your brain makes up just 2% of your body weight. yet it uses about 20% of your oxygen and energy. When blood flow is limited, brain cells simply run out of fuel. That's why high blood pressure, heart problems, or even just a sedentary lifestyle skyrocket the risk of dementia. I once had a patient named Karen, in her early 50s. She had been active most of her life, but after years of stressful office work and little movement, she began to complain about memory and focus issues. By making small changes, adding swimming, yoga, and a diet rich in greens, her brain scans a year later showed significant improvement in blood flow. Next is aging. Everyone gets older, that's a fact, but not everyone ages at the same pace. Some people at 70 are still sharp and lively, while others at 50 already struggle to remember their children's names. The difference often comes down to whether or not you've been taking care of your brain all along. Studies show that people who keep learning, through reading, playing music, or doing puzzles, tend to keep their brains younger by at least a decade. Think of your brain like a muscle. If you don't work it out, it shrinks. But if you train it, it gets stronger and more resilient. The third factor is genetics. Yes, genes do play a role. People with the APOE4 variant are up to 10 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's. But that doesn't mean your fate is sealed. A study at Stanford University found that people with the risky gene who followed a Mediterranean diet, exercised regularly, and maintained healthy vitamin D levels drastically lowered their chances of developing the disease. It's a reminder that your genes don't write your whole life story, your lifestyle does. Next up is head trauma. In the US, there are millions of concussions every year, and many go undiagnosed. A bike accident, a sports collision, or even a minor fall can leave invisible scars on the brain. I remember a patient named Mark, a 45-year-old businessman who came to me with sudden panic attacks. At first, no one could figure out why, but when we scanned his brain, we saw an old injury in the frontal lobe from a bicycle crash years earlier that he thought was no big deal. Only after getting the right treatment did his symptoms finally fade. The fifth factor is toxins. Cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, heavy metals, and even chemicals in personal care products can attack the brain. Research from the National Institutes of Health shows that long-term exposure to lead or mercury can cut cognitive ability by as much as 30%. I had a friend, Amanda, who lived near an industrial area. She constantly suffered from headaches, fatigue, and poor sleep. Tests revealed her mercury levels were abnormally high. After moving and going through a safe detox program, her symptoms disappeared. It was a powerful reminder that our brains are more fragile than we think. And our environment matters. Another major factor is mental health. Depression, anxiety, and chronic stress are not just moods, they literally reshape the brain. In women, depression can double the risk of Alzheimer's, while in men the risk quadruples. I once worked with Brian, who often described his life as foggy and hopeless. His scans showed that his hippocampus, the memory center, was smaller than normal. Through therapy, meditation, and exercise, that part of his brain actually recovered. His story proves that mood and brain health are deeply connected. The seventh risk factor is early memory loss or cognitive decline. This is an early warning sign that too many people brush off. You forget where you left your keys or miss an appointment and think, oh, that's just aging. But sometimes, it's an early marker of something more serious. The silver lining? Early detection means early intervention. Brain training programs, from memory games to learning a new language, can dramatically extend your mental lifespan. Eighth, anemia and circulation problems. When the brain doesn't get enough blood, you feel fatigued, dizzy, and foggy. A Harvard study showed that people with long-term anemia have a 40% higher risk of cognitive decline compared to healthy individuals. Simply getting routine blood work and supplementing with iron or vitamin B12 when needed can protect your brain from this risk. Ninth, infections and immune problems. Did you know that Lyme disease, gum disease, or even COVID-19 can leave marks on your brain? I remember a teenager named Sophia, just 16, who was misdiagnosed with schizophrenia after several hospital visits. But deeper testing revealed she had brain inflammation caused by Lyme disease. After a year of treatment with antibiotics, her brain healed and she returned to her normal self. Her story shows that not every behavior change is psychological, sometimes. The culprit is hidden infection. 10th is hormone imbalance, low testosterone in men, estrogen decline during menopause, or thyroid dysfunction. All of these impact the brain. Studies show that low testosterone is linked to depression and poor memory in younger men, while women after menopause face double the risk of Alzheimer's. This tells us that regular hormone checkups are just as important as checking blood pressure or cholesterol. Finally, the 11th factor is an unhealthy lifestyle. Obesity, sugary diets, lack of exercise, and chronic sleep deprivation. Did you know that gaining just 10 extra pounds can significantly shrink brain volume? MRI studies at the University of Pittsburgh found that obese individuals had brains that looked 16 years older than their normal weight peers. And lack of sleep? That's the silent killer. If you get fewer than 6 hours of sleep a night, your brain can't properly clear out amyloid beta, the toxic waste that plays a major role in Alzheimer's. So there you have it. 11 silent thieves stealing your brain health every single day. But remember, unlike a life sentence, this isn't your destiny. You can change the outcome. And in the next part, we're going to explore exactly how, the proven, science-backed strategies you can use to protect, restore, and even strengthen your brain. We've just gone through the 11 silent thieves that steal your brain health. But here's the thing. This is not a death sentence. The amazing news is that your brain has an extraordinary ability to heal itself. Science calls this neuroplasticity, the ability of your brain to change, rewire, and even grow new brain cells, even well into middle age or later in life. Our job is to create the right conditions so this healing can happen every single day. The first and most important strategy may sound simple: quality sleep. When you sleep 7 to 8 hours, your brain goes into a cleanup mode, flushing out toxic waste like amyloid beta, the main culprit behind Alzheimer's disease. A study from the University of Rochester found that the brain's cleaning system, called the glymphatic system, works twice as hard while you sleep. Think of it like a city sanitation crew. If you don't give them time to do their job, the garbage piles up and causes chaos. One of my patients, Jennifer, lived for years on just 4 hours of sleep a night. But when she started turning off screens early, meditating before bed, and keeping her room completely dark, everything changed. In just 3 months, her memory improved, and her mood lifted dramatically. Next up, brain-nourishing nutrition. Think of your brain like a sports car. If you put cheap, dirty fuel in it, the engine breaks down. Clean fuel for your brain means whole, nutrient-rich foods, leafy greens, low-mercury fatty fish, berries, nuts, and olive oil. The Mediterranean diet has been proven to cut Alzheimer's risk by up to 33%. In fact, a study in neurology found that people who ate the most leafy greens had brains that functioned as if they were 11 years younger than those who rarely ate them. Try making small swaps: soda for water, chips for almonds, fried burgers for grilled salmon. Little choices, over time, create huge results. The third strategy: exercise. When you move your body, you boost blood flow to the brain, feed your neurons, and spark the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, what scientists call fertilizer for the brain. Research from the University of British Columbia showed that just 40 minutes of brisk walking 3 times a week increased the size of the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. I think of John, a father in his 60s who worried about his family history of Alzheimer's. He started by simply walking with his wife every evening. 6 months later, he'd lost weight, was sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and even felt more optimistic about life. Another key factor: stress management. When you're stressed, your brain pumps out cortisol. And when cortisol stays high for too long, it shrinks the hippocampus and sabotages memory. The solution? Meditation, yoga, deep breathing, or even just spending time in nature. A Harvard study found that just 20 minutes of daily mindfulness meditation for 8 weeks thickened the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that controls emotions and decision-making. One of my patients, Laura, a high school teacher, used to feel constantly burned out, but when she started meditating for just 10 minutes before class, everything shifted. She was calmer with her students, more focused, and her chronic headaches nearly disappeared. The fifth strategy is lifelong learning and mental stimulation. Your brain is like a machine, it runs best when challenged. Learning a new language, playing an instrument, or even solving crosswords forces the brain to build new connections. Research from the Mayo Clinic shows that people who regularly challenge their brains lower their risk of cognitive decline by nearly 48%. Take Margaret, who at age 82 decided to learn the piano after retiring. 6 years later, not only could she play beautifully, but her memory was so sharp her doctor said her brain looked younger than many people in their 60s. And don't forget social connections. Loneliness is one of the most dangerous risk factors for the brain. On par with smoking, a long-term study from the University of Chicago found that lonely people had a 64% higher risk of dementia. Our brains are wired to connect. When you laugh, share, or simply spend time with others, your brain releases oxytocin and dopamine, the happy chemicals that protect neurons. So instead of scrolling alone on the couch, call up an old friend, join a club, or simply sit down for dinner with your family. Another important strategy: protecting your brain from toxins and inflammation. That means taking care of your gums. Gum disease has been linked to Alzheimer's. It also means choosing safer products. From sunscreen to shampoo, studies from the Environmental Working Group have shown that many common household products contain chemicals that harm the brain and hormones. One young patient of mine, Kevin, swapped out all his personal care items for safer alternatives, started flossing daily, and kept up with dental checkups. Within a year, his chronic headaches and daily fatigue were gone. And finally, love your brain. It sounds simple, but it's foundational. When you treat your brain as your most valuable asset, you'll naturally want to protect it. Imagine waking up tomorrow with all your memories gone, your skills erased, your emotions blank. Life would lose its meaning. Your brain is the storyteller of your life. Love it, care for it, and you'll not only gain better health but a richer, more joyful life. These strategies aren't lofty theories. They're small, practical steps you can start today. And each small step is like a brick in rebuilding the foundation of your mind. In the next part, we'll dive into real-life stories of people right here in America who transformed their lives by transforming their brains. Science really comes to life when we see how it applies in the real world. Numbers and statistics are important, but sometimes they don't hit as hard as a real story. So let's step into the lives of people who dared to change their brains, and in doing so, changed their entire lives. The first story belongs to Anthony, a former football player. During his career, he took hundreds of hard hits on the field. After retiring, Anthony found himself forgetful, short-tempered, and feeling like a stranger in his own body. But instead of giving up, he tried a brain recovery program. With a diet rich in salmon, light exercise, mindfulness meditation, and group therapy, his brain function improved dramatically. Today, Anthony not only remembers his family's anniversaries, but he's also become a mentor for younger athletes, teaching them to care for their brains before it's too late. Then there's Melissa, a 36-year-old office worker caught up in the hustle culture. She used to pride herself on her ability to multitask, but the cost was constant stress, sleepless nights, and sudden waves of anxiety. One day, she collapsed at work from sheer exhaustion. That was her wake-up call. Slowly, Melissa began to change, sleeping enough, practicing yoga, eating healthier, and learning to say no when her plate was full. 6 months later, she came back to work with renewed energy, and her colleagues noticed she was more creative and effective than ever. The third story is about Robert, a veteran who carried the heavy weight of war memories. He returned home haunted by nightmares, plagued by insomnia, and distant from his family. PTSD felt like it had destroyed his life. But through brain imaging, group therapy, and consistent physical training, Robert found his balance again. 3 years later, not only was he functioning, but he had become a social advocate, helping other veterans heal from trauma. He often tells people, "My brain used to feel like a battlefield, but now it's where I find peace." Another inspiring story comes from Olivia, a 21-year-old who grew up with ADHD. All through school, she was criticized for not paying attention, and her grades were shaky. As an adult, she struggled to hold down jobs. But with the right strategies, starting her mornings with protein, Exercising regularly and following her doctor's treatment plan, Olivia made a huge turnaround. She finished college and now works in design, a field that demands both creativity and focus. One more story that stands out to me is Thomas, a 57-year-old businessman. For years, he drowned himself in alcohol and accepted that his memory was beyond saving. Brain scans showed visible damage, but Thomas refused to give up. He quit drinking, shifted to a healthier diet, stuck to a workout routine, and embraced meditation. After just over a year, his mind felt sharp again. His energy returned, and he told me, "I feel 15 years younger." What all these stories have in common is one powerful truth. Change begins with the belief that the brain can heal. When you give it what it needs, quality sleep, proper nutrition, movement, social connection, and self-love, the brain responds with clarity, vitality, and joy. And that's the lesson here. Changing your brain doesn't just change your health. It changes the way you experience life itself. In the next part, we'll bring everything together, distill the key takeaways, and talk about how to turn them into real, daily actions you can start right now. We've just taken a long journey together, from uncovering the silent enemies that damage the brain, to exploring the science-backed strategies that help it heal and thrive. We've also heard inspiring real-life stories of people who chose to change and ended up transforming their lives. And now comes the most important part. It's not about how much you know. It's about what you do with what you know. First, start with sleep. Sleep isn't wasted time. It's the greatest gift you can give your brain. When you get enough rest and go to bed on a regular schedule, your brain flushes out toxins and recharges its energy. If you've been sleeping less than 6 hours, try adjusting gradually. Go to bed just 20 or 30 minutes earlier. Within a few weeks, you'll notice the difference: sharper memory, better mood, and more energy. Second, eat like you're investing in your future. Your brain runs on fuel, and the best fuel comes from leafy greens, fatty fish, berries, nuts, and healthy oils. If starting feels overwhelming, pick one small change. Add a serving of veggies to dinner. Swap soda for water. Every small decision is a brick in building a stronger, healthier brain. Third, keep moving. You don't need high-intensity workouts to reap the benefits. A brisk walk, a bike ride, or even a few simple exercises at home can boost blood flow and nourish your brain cells. Think of every step as a step toward sharper memory and a stronger mind. Fourth, manage your stress. Stress is part of life, but how you handle it shapes your brain's future. Try 5 to 10 minutes of meditation each day, or spend some time outdoors. Those peaceful moments act as a shield, protecting your brain from the wear and tear of stress hormones. Fifth, keep your brain learning and connected. Read a book, pick up a new skill, or play a brain game with friends. And never underestimate the power of social connection. Call an old friend, join a gathering, or sit down for dinner with family. Love and connection feed your brain just as much as food and oxygen. So, what's the final lesson? You have the power to take charge of your brain health. You're not stuck with old habits. You don't have to accept decline as destiny. Your brain can change, and when your brain changes, your life changes. And this is the moment to act. Choose one small thing today. Maybe it's going to bed earlier, taking a walk around the block, or calling someone you care about. One small step can start a chain of big changes. And if this video has been helpful, hit that like button, share it with someone you love, and subscribe so we can keep building this journey of protecting the most valuable asset we all have, our brain. Remember this: when you love your brain, you're not just adding years to your life, you're adding life to your years. And that is the real gift for your future.